when it goes back up, I can afford this Bentley. So that's why I kind of waited. And then in 2017 was like the life changing moment when all of a sudden I looked and go, holy cow, this really changed my wealth, let's say. So I went out and bought the Bentley. So I was like, I got that out of the way. And that was in 2017 when Bitcoin went all the way up to almost 19 grand, right around there. And so I lucked out, sold when it was high, and then it dropped all the way back down to 3 grand the next year. So here I am driving this Bentley, and I went from this much money back down to this much money. And what did I do?
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of the Orange Peel podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. It is going to be the most special one yet. I am joined today by an OG Bitcoiner. He's going to take us all the way back to 2013. I am joined by Jeff Gucci Long. Jeff, I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining.
Of course, thank you for having me, and I look forward to orange peeling the Gen Z with you.
Of course. I think it's so funny that we've taken orange pilling and turned it into orange peeling. I'm so proud of that name. It's like my
It
favorite
is
part
a
of the
good name.
podcast is just the name.
Kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Do you want to give yourself a quick little introduction? Can you take us back all the way to 2013? Maybe talk about how you first discovered Bitcoin and like what made you take it seriously? What was the vibe like back then?
Well, I discovered Bitcoin through RT News, which is Russian TV news, and
Oh, wow.
Max Kaiser and Stacy Herbert were on there. They had a show and they were talking about Bitcoin all the time, religiously. And so I liked watching it. That's how I got my news. So I started hearing Bitcoin and then I started looking into it and I said, you know what? It looks just like an investment. Why not? I liked the math behind it. I liked how it's a little anti-government, anti-banks, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely disguised as an investment when I first got into it, and then as you go down the rabbit hole, it becomes much more. That's why I and yourself are doing these podcasts. I think it's so important to get out there. And the vibe back in 2013, nobody knew about Bitcoin. So the mainstream news, the internet, YouTubers, nobody was really talking about it. And so I owe everything to Max and Stacy. So shout out to them. They are amazing, wonderful. And he did a great job at orange peeling me, right? And he did it to the right person because, I am my own business owner and I can sell cars. I'm an auto broker and actually was an auto broker since I retired. So I can explain Bitcoin. If I can sell a car to anybody in California, I can sell freedom to the world, right? So he definitely
That's
got the
true.
right person on board. It changed my life and I'm a spitting image of what Bitcoin can do to raise your vibration, right? And when I told my friends and my family and everybody about it, like, hey, this thing I'm investing in, they didn't want to hear about it. It was just a pyramid scheme. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. The only two people that really believed in it and understood it was my girlfriend and my best friend. And that was it. So I had my little two people, and then the rest was from RT News, and that's how I became a believer.
It's so cool that you were orange pilled by Max Kaiser himself. I feel like he, or at least I regard him, as like the OG Bitcoiner, right after like Satoshi Nakamoto. It's Max Kaiser. That's just awesome. So what was the perception of Bitcoin on the internet at the time? Were you seeing a lot of people
Well,
maybe
I
thinking
didn't
it was
start.
fake or?
I didn't start promoting Bitcoin online till like 2015 because it took about 2 years of ups and downs and listening to Max Kaiser before I was like, holy cow, this is something really new and exciting. When I'd post all over Facebook, because I'm a little older, so it was all over Facebook, I didn't get the I don't know, replies. Nobody was really interested, right? And so now I get to go back on those posts and say, hey, I was telling people to buy Bitcoin at $500 and stuff like that. I didn't really become active on X until probably about this year, the end of 2024, the beginning of 2025, because the community on X is amazing. There's no community back then. My community was me, my girlfriend, my best friend, and Max Kaiser. And every time I had a little bit of doubt, because when I got in to Bitcoin 2013, it was up and down, up and down. It didn't really start to take off until like the end of 2016, 17. So I had Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin when it was at 1,000, and then it went back down to $200. So you can imagine when people are all, oh, it went down 10% now and everybody's, freaking out. Can you
Yeah.
imagine when it goes from 1,000 down to 200, it drops, 80%. But the conviction I got from Max Kaiser was like, okay, what do you do? Double down. So I bought a bunch more when it was at $200. And so when you have to have that conviction, and luckily I had the conviction early on, all thanks to Max Kaiser.
That's awesome. I feel like part of Bitcoin is needing to hold on. We see so many rises and so many dips. There's a dip going on right now. So what made you hold on to Bitcoin back then and stick through all of its ups and downs?
Well, I'll be honest with you. In the beginning, I wanted a Bentley, and I was, working for myself as an auto broker. And I looked at how long it would take me to get this nice car, a Bentley, right? And I said, oh, wow, it's going to take a long time. This Bitcoin thing that's going up and down, if I can buy a bunch when it's down, then when it goes back up, I can afford this Bentley. So that's why I kind of waited. And then in 2017, was like the life changing moment when all of a sudden I looked and go, holy cow, this really changed my wealth, let's say. So I went out and bought the Bentley. So I was like, I got that out of the way. And that was in 2017 when Bitcoin went all the way up to almost 19 grand, right around there. And so I lucked out, sold when it was high, and then it dropped all the way back down to 3 grand the next year. So here I am driving this Bentley, and I went from this much money back down to this much money. And what did I do? I sold the Bentley and bought more Bitcoin. And so when
Wow.
people say never sell, sometimes it can be in your best interest to sell when it is very high. And then if it goes lower, have that conviction and buy more. A lot of people out there go, oh, the price went up. That's the best marketing for Bitcoin. So they buy more. And then they freak out when it drops 10%. Sometimes they sell. Who knows? But for me, I had such belief. And as I was checking off my life goals, I tried not to sell the Bitcoin, of course, and always was trying to buy with extra money, the investment money. So yeah, I mean, that's why I really had that conviction, didn't sell. And then after that, around 2017, I was like, holy cow, this is a lot more than buy your favorite car money. This is life changing wealth. And that's when I really had to kind of dive deep inside, like, and be like, what do I sell it on now? What do I do? What do I do? And all thanks to Max Kaiser, I had that belief inside that said, you know what? What if this really takes off? What if? Right. And then I'd go to my bank and I'd have to wait in a long line. I couldn't get my money out of the bank on a Sunday or parts of Saturday. And it was, I'd want a little bit more than, the 5 or 6 grand that they would allow. They couldn't even give me 8 grand. And, when I'm buying and selling cars, so I'd be like, I need 8 grand right now to buy this car. Oh, sorry, we can't even give it to you. That's after waiting in line a half an hour to finally talk to the teller. So these things were going on in my mind like, okay, well, water flows the least resistance, right? Well, if Bitcoin is the least resistance to all of us, right? Why wouldn't the population flow toward Bitcoin? And so that was my reasoning. And so far it's been playing out better than I could have expected. And it's all because of the people like myself in the beginning, like you, like all these podcasters are starting to get on board because it really is something that changes your perspective. Like I would like to say, the tickets to escape the matrix are priced in Bitcoin, right? So it's at what price are you going to escape the matrix? And it's more than just an asset. It's a whole mindset, right? And so
Right.
down the road, I'll go into that because I think that's very important for your generation to see like what it does, not only for you financially, but what it does to your mindset, to your spirit, to your consciousness. And so I think that's super important.
It's good that you actually touched on that, because I fully believe Bitcoin is all about perspective. You are 100% correct, and I'm with you on saying that. And my next question was actually going to be, what made you finally start seeing it as maybe an alternative to the current system that we have? What made it go from an investment into, as you said, the ticket out of the matrix?
I think it's a gradual progression toward thinking that. It would be foolish to say, "Oh, I bought Bitcoin and now I'm think this way. I have this mindset," right? It's hard to say. It really is. I think every day it's still impressing me. It's still growing upon my consciousness. It's still changing the base layer of reality to this mumbo jumbo government fiat stuff to Bitcoin, where the whole world is backed by it and has a base layer. So I think, I'm always learning, I'm always growing with Bitcoin, and I'm always becoming more of a believer. So I wouldn't say there's one instance, but I would say 17 when it jumped way up gave me a real, shake to my core to say, okay, this is something a lot more than just an investment. But just going on the community and listening to the YouTubers, and especially when they talk about how it changes the consciousness of humanity and your
Mhm.
spirit, that is something that I believe in a lot more that Bitcoin's doing for us as humanity than just this investment that's better than fiat, if that makes sense. So I'm still learning, still growing, and still processing this amazing thing. Even though I probably understand it like more than 98% of people, it's still growing on me, I guess.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Bitcoin, it's one of the only communities that feels like you're never really an expert, right? The more you
Yeah.
know, the more that there is to know, the more that there is left to learn. Yeah, so coming off of topic a little bit, you retired this year at the age of 40, so congratulations on that. That is absolutely amazing. What is that looking like for you now?
Well, I'm a full-time dad, stay-at-home dad pretty much, right? If I'm not
Awesome.
spearfishing at the bottom of the ocean, shooting big fish to eat, or hanging out with my friends, or driving in my nice car, or working out, I'm hanging out with my kids. That is the most important thing. Family is number one. I think the old fiat way kind of disconnects you from family because it's like, gotta go out to school, gotta go out and make something for myself and chase this fiat dream, but you're chasing something that's inflated. Inflation is inflating away from you that dream. And so yeah, I mean, it's just this amazing thing. It's just one of those things. But go ahead.
Absolutely. Family is so important. I
Yeah.
was into this space by my dad as well. So Bitcoin, I guess it's just keeping families together. It's keeping them
Well,
tight
yeah,
knit
and so
worldwide.
my kid's all about, just going out, having fun. My 3.5-year-old
Yep.
son, he's outside touching trees, he's grounding with the ground, getting the energy. He's probably one of the smartest, healthiest little boys I've ever seen
That's
because
awesome.
comes from a Bitcoin family and his dad's there every day. And so that's what retirement looks like is hanging out with family. And Bitcoin is just the fastest vehicle, in my opinion, to get you to that retire. And I didn't have to retire, but I thought it'd be a good flex to say, look, Bitcoin made me retire, got me to retire at 40. If I had what I had in fiat terms, I wouldn't retire because I always, we'd be losing my energy, my wealth. But with regards to Bitcoin, and you look in terms of just numbers, how many humans there are and how many Bitcoins there are, and you go, well, I'm pretty good. As long as this game theory of Bitcoin keeps progressing like it is, I'll never need to work again. So why would I work for another 10, 15, 20 years of my life to make this much when Bitcoin could make that in a year or two of just doing what Bitcoin does?
That incredible answer as well. You put that into words so well. Moving into Gen Z, my entire audience is young adults, it's college students. We are coming of age. We're growing up in a world that's filled with inflation, and we've got student debt on our heads and lots of shaky institutions. We're going through almost a political revolution right now where we're so divided amongst ourselves. So, what is your advice to maybe some Gen Z, some college students who are maybe trying to get ahead a little bit, stay in the game and get a little bit further?
Buy Bitcoin, number one, and be a free thinker. Right. Try to go back to critical thinking. And, if anybody is for Bitcoin, they're for peace, world peace. Right. You can't be for Bitcoin and then be, thinking war and all these other things that divide us is right. Right. And so I would say work on that Bitcoin mindset and work on stacking Bitcoin. Those are going to be the two most important things because if you just stack Bitcoin, you don't have a good mindset, you're going to sell it too quick or you're going to lose it or you're going to lose your health, right? And then if you just focus on that, but you don't have Bitcoin, then you're trying to manifest a great reality, right? But you don't have a vehicle to get you there. And Bitcoin is the vehicle that's going to help you manifest your reality because you think of it like, it's helping you grow, and then the government and these other entities out there are trying to take your wealth and your energy.
Again, I fully agree. I think right now, as students, it feels really daunting to see Bitcoin and look at the price and think, whoa, how am I supposed to buy that? So, how
Yeah.
would you go about it? If you were in college right
Well, I
now,
got a
how would you
perfect
go about
answer.
saving?
And this is not financial advice, but I'd go get a student loan and go buy Bitcoin. right?
Okay.
One of our local colleges at Santa Clara University, they had me as a guest speaker for a financial class. And I went in talking about how a college student should, go about buying their first car. But of course, I go in
Mhm.
there talking about Bitcoin and this and that. And one of the things I told them, I was like, look, if you have the money to buy a car, go lease it or go get a low rate and buy the car and take that money and buy the bestest, hardest asset possible, Bitcoin. Now, I've sold hundreds, almost thousands of cars in California. And I would talk to families and they would come to me and ask me my professional advice. How should I buy this car? What car should I buy? This and that. Well, I'd find one with 0% on a brand new car. And this was when the interest rates were lower. And I'd tell them, go buy Bitcoin or go do something like that. Have your money work for you and go take the 0% on this new Prius or whatever. Right. And jokingly, I would say it because I didn't think they were going to do it. And all the time, that's funny, blah, blah, blah. But now you can imagine 5 years down the road, all these customers are like, holy cow, I remember my auto broker sold me the car, said I should have just bought Bitcoin and so it's funny advice and it's good advice, but it's things that I would do if I didn't have, my status or whatever. And if I was in your generation, the first thing I would do is, ooh, get that free or not free, get that cheap money and go buy something that's only going to go up and be very difficult to buy the same amount in a later time period, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Again, Bitcoin just seems so daunting, and investing in Bitcoin seems so daunting. And I think
Invest a small amount,
like
right? Because when I went in, I was investing smaller amounts. I didn't go all in one day, 1 week, or 1 month. I went in over four
Mhm.
years, right? And so what I would
Yeah.
say is look at me as an example. I invested for 4 to 5 years, wrote it for another 7 or 8, and now I'm retired. If you can think in that mindset and think, I don't have enough to buy, zero point 0.1 Bitcoin now or this or that, just put in what you're willing to not touch for a while, and then it slowly starts to just simmer and cook, and then all of a sudden you have this great wonderful meal you can just eat and enjoy and retire and not have to worry about um, all these other things that you're stuck in that fiat matrix mindset.
Yes, yes. I think that that one's really the point that I wanted to iterate here. So I've been going about it by, just skipping morning coffee every day and putting that towards Bitcoin instead, stacking the sats as some would call it. But I think it's all about that mindset. It's all about telling yourself that I know this seems super scary, but we're in the age where these are such formative years and the financial decisions that we make now are essentially going to make or break how we start our early careers.
Yeah.
And so it's really good to hear from you who no, you've obviously have had such a great journey. So again, yeah, thank you for being here.
And remember, for yourself and Gen Z, you guys have the best, biggest, wonderfulest, the best asset anybody could ever ask for, which is time, right? So I got into Bitcoin when I was 29 years old. That's when I bought my first Bitcoin. So if you're younger than that, you already are ahead of me just by the time. And, there's not, there's no amount of money in the world that I wouldn't give probably to go back in time to get all those extra years, right? And so enjoy your time, but realize have your time work for you, right? So if I did it at 29, retired at 40, let's say it took me 11, 12 years, whatever. Think of it from where you're at now. Try to emulate what I did and should be fine. I don't see a better asset than Bitcoin, real estate or stocks or anything. Nothing comes close to it. Your generation may say, well, look, there's all these other cryptos. We can buy some of those and, make a higher return, but then put it into Bitcoin, right? Because I would say there's no second best. Don't buy anything else. But, there are ones in short term go up faster and blah, blah, blah. So there are a lot of ways to get more Bitcoin. Another thing I'd like to point out is a lot of people don't do this. If you go the extra mile in work and things, go the extra mile in what you're paid and the service you're supposed to render, you just go that little extra bit because a lot of people don't even go the first mile, let alone the extra mile. If you do that, you'll not only be ahead in life, right? But with extra money and all that extra stuff, then you put that extra work that you did, put it into Bitcoin. Extra mile in life, you invest in yourself and then you invest in Bitcoin and you're set. easy. You get distracted by all these other things that are out there. You got celebrities, you got sports, you got all these things. In reality, it's health and Bitcoin in your mindset.
So, stemming off that a bit, if someone is, working, they're starting completely afresh with absolutely no investments. They've got nothing in maybe their Roth or they haven't bought S&P 500. What is the smartest first step that they can take? Is it just to take whatever they can and just put it into Bitcoin?
Well, like for instance, there's crypto.com where they have a Visa card, right? And so you can take your money, throw it in there, and then spend the Visa card and you get money back in crypto. And then you could just convert that crypto to Bitcoin. And so if you're spending money on gas and Starbucks and all these things that you're normally buying, why not get a little bit of money back in crypto instead of more cash or airline miles or whatever else? So you could technically just not really change anything, but just change your bank from a bank and your, Bank of America card or whatever it is over to a crypto card. And that'll be an easy, quick way where you could slowly just start getting into Bitcoin, right? Because if you take 82 billion people and there's only, maybe a couple million Bitcoin left out there for people to even get, they only need to spend maybe 40, $50 now to get their piece of history, right? I only had to spend maybe $1 or 10 cents or who knows, right? But imagine in another 10 years, it's not going to be 40 or $50 to get their part of Bitcoin. It's going to be 400 or $4,000, right? And so just get that 40, $50 now. And then if you want to have as much Bitcoin as 10 people, put $400 in, right? If you want to have as much purchasing power as more people, you just get more Bitcoin, right? And that's how I looked at it. I said, you know what? There's so many people in my county, right? In my Santa Cruz County where I live. And then I did the Bitcoin, the math, and I said, well, all I need is this much Bitcoin, and I'll have more Bitcoin than the whole county of people, right? So I just did simple math to see where I needed to be at to be the leader of my whole entire county, right? And
All right, crypto.com. I need to look into that. That sounds like a
there's
really,
many
really
other
good way to
ones,
start growing
right?
up.
There's many
Okay.
other ones, but that's one that I use every time. Like, I put it this way, right? I went to Canada last month for a wedding, and it was only about an hour and a half plane ride from California right up to Canada. So I land, we go in, we're having a great time. We're at a restaurant, and yeah, I go up to the bar to order a drink. I pull out a $20 bill to go pay for it, and they say, "Your money's not good here," right? It's. I was like, "Oh yeah, it looks like America, right? They look like me, like everything's the same." But then the
Right.
money's not even good there, right? So you start to see these
Wow.
things and go, wow, it's opens your mind up to why Bitcoin is so important and why these government fiat things are so limited. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think, the best thing about Bitcoin is that it's completely decentralized. There's no government involved. So if anything, it's a way to unite the world, which
But
is just
it is.
absolutely incredible to think about. So beyond investing, what are the habits or maybe some sacrifices that you think Gen Z should or needs to make now to build some long-term freedom?
Ooh, this is the one I wanted to elaborate on, right? So I'll try. I always go off on these questions, but this one is the most important, right? Because you can go and watch YouTube videos all day, and it's going to be about the analytics, about the price, the economics, about decentralization, all these things that make sense, right? But what are the habits? What are the traits? What are these things that you have to be aware of and conscious when you're young and you're coming up into this world, right? You have to have this knowledge and Bitcoin. They go hand in hand, right? So out of all the questions that you sent me, this one I was like, all right, let me elaborate on because I am living proof. I'm a normal person, right? Not a politician. I don't come from a bunch of money. I come from a normal, hardworking person in California that went to college, went to San Jose State, graduated there with my marketing degree, my business owner. Nothing changed my perspective on life better than Bitcoin, right? And so what I wanted to do is go over some of the fiat traits and some of the Bitcoin traits, right? So how I think my mindset now than what somebody that's trapped in the matrix or just coming up in life that's just looking and absorbing their normal environment, what a fiat mindset would be that's trapped in the matrix and what mine is. So I'll go over some key things like the big one, the religion, government, schools, health, and just a general mindset. So I'll touch on
All
those
right.
topics real quick and give you the two perspective mindsets because I think it's so important. And this is my opinion, right? And this is also not black and white. This is a gray area because I went to school, right? I was raised Catholic. I mean, I went to, there's government. I thought I was a Democrat, then I thought I was a Republican. Now I think I'm the Orange Party leader in California, right? It's your mind's always changing. But so let me go into these fiat traits when you're stuck in in the matrix, and versus the Bitcoin traits. So religion, we'll start off that with the mindset of a
Right.
fiat thinker when it comes to religion, right? There's
Okay.
4,000 to 10,000 different religions out there, right? So when you're born and raised in a certain area, your mindset isn't expanding. You're not really a free thinker, right? You're kind of taught what to think in these categories with school, with government, with all these things. So, and a lot of religions are based on fear. If you don't do this, this is the consequence, right? And they're also all man written, right? God didn't come down and actually say this is, how you do it. And then they're all, or not all, but most of them were state backed, or some are still state backed religions, right? Like Israel or
Right.
somewhere, you don't have that freedom to be a free thinker. It's state backed, right? And they also say that we're entering the Ahrimanic impulse era. And what that is Ahriman is the entity of materialism, right?
Okay.
So in that fiat matrix mindset, it's material, right? What can I buy to make me look rich, right? This super expensive bag, this, designer bag or things like that, right? And I was guilty of this when I was younger. I spent a lot on things to make me look like I had money when I didn't have money, right? So trust me on that. So yeah, the religion, boom, boom. They're also the new religion with AI and tech is like saying, look, you don't have a soul. You're an algorithm, right? You're not that special. You're just a human. You're an algorithm and blah, 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 right? And
Right.
so it's also like science backed, right? But science can't answer all the questions. Okay. That is like the fiat matrix mindset for religion. Now, a Bitcoiner, my mindset right now on religion is that we are just a pinpoint of infinite intelligence, right? And so that's what I would like to say. And then, and prayers without actions fall on deaf ears, right? So religion can teach you to pray, but it doesn't teach you how to pray. And so, real quick, I'll just state this real quick because you're like, what do you mean how to pray? Right? There's all these scriptures and all these things, and, people go back to this Bible verse and all this, right? Well, one thing that your younger generation that's quick and easy that can, I guess, pray in my mind to infinite intelligence is you could say, I ask infinite intelligence not for more riches, but for more wisdom to control and use the riches I was given at birth, right? Because we are given all the same riches at birth. It's just how do you use them to acquire everything you want in life, right? And so when you pray with actions and realize that you're connected to this infinite intelligence, it's amazing. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I did want to point that out. Any questions on that before I move to the government side of the
No, I
mind?
think you put it into words almost perfectly. Yeah, I
Thank
didn't
you.
even think of it in that way.
I'm just a car salesman in California that has been orange pilled by Max Kaiser. I'm just a normal
Mhm.
person, but I promise you this, that Bitcoin does help elevate your consciousness. It really does, right? I'm living proof of that because I wouldn't be able to look past religion, government, schools, and all these things if I didn't invest more knowledge in myself and have a base layer of reality to back it up. Because if without Bitcoin,
Right.
it's hard to back up all these things I'm saying. It's just like, yeah, it sounds good, but what about this Bible verse or what about this, right? Okay, so now we'll move on to governments, right? So government mindset, oh my gosh, right? So, they have the left versus right, Democrat, Republican, trying to put each other against each other, right? And governments are all backed by war, yay, right? And they print fiat paper, which is the paper backed by a war, right? So the governments are giving us this, like, hey, thank you, right? And they're taxing us to death, right? You own a house, you're taxed on it, right? The land, the tax, taxation is theft. Well, they're stealing from us right there. What about COVID, right? They restricted us and gave us fear and gave us, in my mind, snake venom to make us sick. This is my opinion, right? But this is what I see. Are pedophiles running the government? Does CIA have these deep, cover up ops, all this? I don't know, right? But there's no base layer behind it. And here's the
Right.
illogical thing about government, right? Why do we have government? Because they say we can't trust people. We can't trust humans. That's why we have government. the government's made up of humans. So the logic of government is illogical because if we trusted humans, we wouldn't need government. If we don't trust humans, why would we put humans and give them more power to rule over us? It makes no sense, right? So this is the government that you're trapped in the matrix. Normal people, 98% of people are thinking like this, right?
Right.
They also come up with man-made laws, right? And they have banks and stocks, right? What's better than banks and stocks? Bitcoin, right? What's better than man-made laws? Universal law, right? Universal law, like the Ten Commandments, things where, do unto others as you
Right.
want done to yourself. That is way more important than was going 2 miles an hour over the speed limit. And now they're going to extort you or kidnap you if you don't give them the proper stuff, right? So it's mind opening, but all of us Bitcoiners coming together is going to make such a better government, religion, school, all these things, because now you have free thinkers that are saying, well, this doesn't make sense, right? None of this helped me, but Bitcoin and free thinkers did help me, maybe, right? So I have a sandbox theory with the governments, right? Imagine we're all playing in a big sandbox, and the big bully in the sandbox is the US government, right? They have nukes they could drop on you. No matter
Right.
how rich you are or successful, right? Like, no matter what, they can silence you, drop bombs on you. There's nothing you can do to stick up to that bully in the sandbox, right? So what do? You opt out and you go to another sandbox where it's controlled by Bitcoin. The base layer reality is Bitcoin, where it's fair, it's open, and if your wealth grows instead is sucked away and in the fear-based sandbox, right? So the mindset of a Bitcoiner would say, I'll just opt out of this whole thing, right? I don't need any of it. Whatever the government says, I'm just not even going to listen. No shots, no nothing. I don't care about your political party. I'm going to be nice to everybody, all my neighbors. It's a whole different mindset, right? And then you also see this when you take that printed fiat paper and I go to Canada or Mexico, it's not even good there, right? You're in Australia. Do you guys use dollars in Australia or you guys use Australian dollars, right?
Yes.
See? So the United States is how big and how powerful everybody thinks they are. It's
Hmm.
not even good where you are, right? So
That's true.
it doesn't even make sense. So the Bitcoiners think in terms of freedom and universal laws and all that. So then I'll move on to the schools. Any questions on the governments?
No, no, I think a lot of us are looking for a way out right now. Gen Z is so divided where a bunch of them are turning to socialism, obviously, but some of them are, staying there, identifying with the Republican Party. But there's so many of us left in the middle who are just like, we want a way out of this. And at least I found that Bitcoin was the answer for me. And it looks like, with your explanation, with everything that you're saying, I'm hoping everyone watching this, maybe that gives them something to think about. But,
Yeah.
I'll let you continue with your next point.
Well, I think you picked the perfect person to help you because the mindset and these things, I didn't just make them up. This is coming from me
Right,
after indulging and believing in Bitcoin for so many years. I always thought I was a free thinker, but I was really a consumer just like everybody else. And then when I started to realize what is important, your health, your family, your Bitcoin, things like that, has nothing to do with what they taught you in school, which what is important, right?
right.
So we'll move right on to schools then, because I know you're in school. A lot of Gen Z is in school, and
Yes.
nothing against schools, right? Nothing against schools. I went to school, it helped me understand Bitcoin, right? But school tells you what to think and what to memorize, right? And what else? It can teach you some bad habits, but it also costs money and it costs time. Two of the most valuable things, right? And they teach you how to get a job, to pay taxes, how to climb that corporate ladder. They don't teach you about finances, about health, about being your own business owner, you really, and so they also, their structure is like a prison. The lighting's the same, the cafeteria is the same. They have these structures like a prison, right? And so the internet on the Bitcoin side can teach you everything, almost everything, right? I learned probably more how to be a good human and make more money on the internet than school, right? But school is still great, and it still teaches you to use your mind and teach you to think and get up and go places and be on time.
Yes.
So it still teaches you good skills, but it doesn't teach you how to think, how to be a free thinker, right? And if you went to school, they're not, I mean, maybe that's how you learned about Bitcoin, right? You were doing projects in school, is that right?
I learned about Bitcoin actually through my dad, who
So
was
your
orange
dad, you were
pilled
saying, okay,
way
okay.
yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
thought I heard
yes.
you on one of your podcasts that you were doing a project or something, and you
I
started.
wrote a paper on it way back in high school, but that was more so on the global
Yeah.
financial crisis of
And I want to give a
2008.
shout out to your dad because for him to put the importance on Bitcoin onto you is very just amazing, right? One of the
Yeah.
reasons why I felt so excited and obligated to come on your show is because I have a 3-month-old daughter. When
Mhm.
she's your age, she's going to be looking up to people like you, not some old guy like me, right? So if you and your generation can pick up where we're leaving things off, then my younger generation is already going to be thinking super free and wonderful and amazing. We'll have other people like you to verify, right? And say this is true and this mindset does work. And so, I heard on the Bitcoin Nova podcast with Stace. She's awesome and you should check her out as well. She was interviewing, I think it was Dr. Satoshi or someone, and he said that we're all like nodes, right, on the Bitcoin network. And so you, I, other people, we are what help create Bitcoin. And when we're teaching and learning from each other, it's like nodes that are verifying the Bitcoin network, right? So it's pretty
Absolutely.
cool. Um, so yeah, so we went over schools, right? The traits
Yes.
and the mindsets, and then we'll go to health and just the general mindset of someone that's in the matrix and a Bitcoiner, and then we'll move on to your next question because these are what I thought
All
was super
right.
important. So health, and I'm actually going to be on Dr. Satoshi's podcast next week. And so he's
Okay.
a doctor that got orange pilled and now has a podcast. And he's talking about how health and Bitcoin go hand in hand. And I'm living proof of
Okay.
that as well. Because if you don't understand your health and how your body works and what you're consuming and all this stuff, no matter how smart you think you are, how much Bitcoin you think you have, your health is like number one, right? And so the health mindset of someone that's in the matrix is going to be like, oh, fast food, lots of sugar, Starbucks is trending. They're working all the time, so they don't have time to make that food or go out and grow their food or do anything like that, right? And a lot of the meat that they're eating is farmed meat, like fish that's in farmed fish. Or
Mhm.
chickens or cows that are just not the happiest and filled up with vaccines and just not healthy, right? And so
Right.
that is kind of what they teach you and what is normal in the matrix, right? And so for Bitcoin, right, you have to watch what you eat, right? And they don't teach you what to eat in the school or anything like that. So for instance, I fast once a week for 36 hours. So this is good advice for your generation because it does two things. It cleans your system, right? Lets your body rejuvenate. And two, it saves you money. You're
It's
saving
true.
1/7 or whatever of the money you're spending on food. But people think in terms of scarcity and fear, and they go, "Oh, I have to eat," or my stomach's telling my mind what to do, right? But as soon as you can control your mind, you can control your health, right? And so that's why Bitcoin, you can control your finances. You've got to then learn to control your mind as well. And this is part of it with the health, right? Eating your vitamins and bone broth, right? Drinking some bone broth. No one ever thought of that, right? But when I was going through my health issues a year ago, just of not eating perfect, I was learning about these vitamins and bone broth and how you have to eat a certain way. Even if you think you're eating healthy, you still got to eat even more healthy, right? And the health with someone that's trapped in the matrix would say, I need to get a bunch of vaccines to be healthy, right? I need to get all these jabs and COVID vaccines so I can be safe and healthy. My
Mhm.
mindset, a Bitcoiner's mindset, is I need to get sun. I need to be healthy. I need to be in shape. I need to be happy, right? Because that's going to help your mindset. Get sunlight, grounding, all these things. When I go scuba diving in the ocean for an hour, I'm absorbing all those negative ions, clearing out all the
Mhm.
positive ions I get from microwaves and things like that that are bad for your body, right? It's generating your whole body and soul sometimes. People don't even get in the ocean for years, maybe never, right? So these are things that the mindset of a Bitcoiner versus the mindset of someone that's trapped in the matrix. And grow your own food. I grow my own food and I go spearfish
Awesome.
my food and eat the best, most expensive fish out there. If you look up Pacific halibut, or lingcod. Look at the price per pound. And I'm shooting 25, 30 pound fish with my friends, having a blast. Like my life is so good, it should be illegal, right? I'm telling you, it's amazing. That's why I'm trying to spread the Bitcoin vibe to other people to say, wow, it's not just Bitcoin, it's this whole mindset. You get this whole
Mhm.
mindset, then life just gets so much better, in my opinion, right?
Mhm.
And so my son, who's 3.5 years old, has no vaccine and he's like barely ever sick. If he does get sick, he's like over it in a day or two. Very smart. And, all these things where I'm like, okay, well, do these vaccines really mess with people that much? Because I'm like living proof and my son's living proof that, just being healthy and out in the sun is all you really need. And of course, eating right. Right. So,
Mhm.
any quick questions on health? And I'll move to the next one, just general mindset, and then we can move on to your questions.
No, no, I've got no questions. Yeah, it sounds like Bitcoin is just control in a system that's full of chaos all over.
Yeah, it really, after many years, Bitcoin changed my mindset and helped me grow to escape the matrix, to see all these things for what they are. And then they're so important to me. I'm like, let me just tell people because it's not just about this one asset that lets you manifest your reality, but you also have to realize what reality do you want to manifest, right? And so the mindset of someone that is trapped in the fiat system is usually fear, right? Victim mentality, right? Everyone's a victim, from race to this, from that to being too overweight to being a certain everything, right? It's just victim, victim, victim. Even like they say for the white guy, oh, now you're a victim because it's always something, right? It's ridiculous. And they also promote basically the mindset's like a drifter, right? So
Mhm.
you drift like kind of like a leaf in the wind, where the government pushes you, the schools, your friends, society, online. You get all this pressure and you just start drifting, right? And letting it control you. When you have a Bitcoin mindset, you have a purpose and you said, nothing's going to let me drift from my purpose, right? And so getting that purpose and going for it is very, very important for your mindset. Usually, people that are trapped in the fiat system dislike people. Sometimes they dislike themselves, right? And a Bitcoiner, I love myself. I love my friends, my family, and I'm, just trying to pour out this love, right? Maybe it's
Right.
because of Bitcoin and my mindset and being able to retire and be with my family and hang out with my friends. All these things make you happier. It really does, right? And also fiat mindset is thinks in terms of scarcity, right? There's
Mhm.
never enough because it's always being inflated away from you, right? And then the mindset's like celebrity and sports, right? What's the best singer or who's popular on this, the Kardashian,
Mhm.
whatever, right? And then sports, they get guys' minds on sports and this and that and idolizing that instead of other things that are important, family, your health, or other
Right.
things like that. So Bitcoin, their mindset is optimist, being positive, right? All of our minds are like a battery. You can either think negative or positive, right? So you're always thinking. And when you're trapped in that matrix and you're seeing all these things online and the media and all these things and wars, you start to think a little negative, right? As soon as you start going on X and looking at the community of Bitcoiners, hanging out with your family, doing things that you like and you love, you start to be happy, right? You start to think
Yes.
positive. So I'm not perfect. I don't think positive all the time, but I think positive 95% of the time. And all you have to do is think positive 51% of the time. And if you do it more than being negative, you should be all right. And so having the mindset to control your mind and your emotions, to go the extra mile than what you're paid for in or any service, you just go that extra mile in life. Look at me. I'm going the extra mile by doing this podcast, and so are you. That's why we're going to be successful. We're doing something, and most people don't even go the first mile, right? And thinking in abundance and put your family first, and that would be like the mindset of a Bitcoin. So when I had that question from you, I thought this is a very important question because having that mindset and Bitcoin, they go hand in hand. And so hopefully
Absolutely.
that will cover a lot of the questions and the mindset of what it takes to be successful in life and with Bitcoin for your generation. So ask away with more
Yeah,
of your questions. And I appreciate the time that you let me, go over all this because it is a lot to dive, but it's very, very important. They don't teach this in
of
school.
course. Yeah, that's so true. Biggest thing is they don't teach us anything in school. We don't learn anything about from paying our taxes to let alone Bitcoin. We don't learn anything about our financial
Do they teach
future.
you how to grow food or to go hunt food or
Absolutely
spearfish
nothing.
or oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
do think school is good, but
yes,
it's not the answer. And in fact, all that time and money, if you took that time and money and put into other things like Bitcoin and learning for yourself, it could be unlimited, right? And the school is very limited in that. So yeah,
definitely.
any more questions? I'm here to rock and roll, and I appreciate your time on that though.
Of course, all really, really good answers. I think last thing that I wanted to touch on was just do you think that Bitcoin right now for Gen Z offers maybe a similar kind of opportunity that it did for you way back when?
Yeah, good question. I would say the risk and reward are slightly skewed less down. When I went in, the risk was way up here, but then the reward was way up here. Now, I still think it's the best risk to reward asset or thing that you guys can do. But it's a lot less risky now when you have governments and countries like El Salvador, people like me, where I'm like, this is a hill that I'll die on. It's so important, right? I don't think it's going anywhere. And so I think the risk is a lot lower, but the upside is still infinity pretty much, right? Because they're just printing money into infinity and they can always build more houses. There's a lot of land out there that's not developed. Gold, they can find more gold. It's just
Yes,
Bitcoin is it. So just try to get it, go for it, relax, enjoy life. Let the rest of the noise of the government, politics, and celebrities just fizzle out like it is kind of fizzling out, it seems like. And take it from me and other Bitcoiners because I feel confident in what I'm saying because this is like the fifth podcast I've been on it. And the other ones I've been on,
mhm,
they are agreeing with me because they're around my age and they've been into Bitcoin for 5 years. So they're like, yeah, yeah, we're thinking the same. So these mindsets, aren't exact, but there tend to be a general theme going on in this, Bitcoin community we have, especially when you're doing it for more than 5 years and you've been through cycles and you actually made more wealth and you have and then it really helps you. It helps elevate your consciousness, I would say.
definitely. I watched you on the Real Hard Money podcast with Khalif.
Yes,
I
yes.
watched it just last week. A great conversation. That's
Yeah, it's
actually
awesome
how
guy.
I prepped a lot of the interviews.
Okay.
It was so inspiring to hear you both discuss Bitcoin from a perspective that, I don't quite have yet, that I
Mhm.
have to go talk to other people, go, you know, watch other people to even gain. But that aside, so is there something that you wish every, 20-year-old in America or even in Australia knew about money, about the current system that we have right now?
It's too much to digest. Just know that it's
Mhm.
all fake fiat money and then there's real Bitcoin money. That is
All
what
right.
I would like to say is super important. Another thing is if they're wondering like, hey, what's like a good thing to learn from how I can be successful before any of this Bitcoin stuff, just more mindset stuff. They can look up Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, the book he wrote. Another one is Outwitting the Devil that he did. Those are two audio books that they can listen to that'll help their mindset. And buy Bitcoin. Those are the two things that you could instantly do right now that will make Gen Z's life better.
It's great that you touched on that. Because my next question, my last question for this interview was going to be just because the podcast is called Orange Peel, I like to ask, if there's one book or podcast or other resource that you would recommend to Gen Z that maybe can help Orange Peel or Orange Pill them.
Well, I would say none other than Max Kaiser. Just look up all his videos online because he has been preaching this before 2013. And it's weird. Everything he said in 2013 is slowly becoming reality, right? And I think it's because of his vision, but it's his vision that, rubbed off on me, rubbed off on other people, and then it's backed by math. And so I would say that we're always learning. We're all a pinpoint of this infinite intelligence. Let's have a base layer reality where we can all agree on that's backed by math, fairness, and things that can help us grow instead of this fiat government evil, mindset way. Because they say the root of all money or the root of all evil is money, right? And
Yes.
so if that's true, then the the root of all good must be Bitcoin, maybe. So
All
we
right.
will see. But so far, I think Bitcoin is humanity's best way to take back being self-sovereign and growing to the next level that we need to as a race, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're watching this and you're like me and you felt kind of stuck in the past months, especially maybe ever since the US election, and you've kind of just been like, what do I do? Everything seems kind of like it's not my choice anymore. Nothing is my choice anymore. Um, Bitcoin is our ticket out of that matrix. Bitcoin
Yeah.
is the
Opt
way
out
back
of that
to
old evil sandbox. Go to the sandbox where
yes,
I'm in, that I'm living proof that it'll make you happier, more successful. And one thing I'd like to point out is before Bitcoin, I used to be part of the human race, right? A race for more money, a race to get out away from your family, a race where my wheels are just spinning in place because of inflation. After being in Bitcoin for a while, I became back part of humankind, right? Kinder to myself, my family, and friends. So, with that mindset, I think that and Bitcoin can solve 90% of all our problems.
that is an awesome closer. Be part of the humankind. Stay kind. Look at Bitcoin. With that being said, that brings this episode to a close. I really hope you enjoyed watching this. I definitely had a great time chatting with you, Jeff. I learned
Likewise,
so
thank you.
much, and I hope you had a good time being on Orange Peel as well.
Well, and thank you, Nikki, for doing what you do because it takes courage and faith to be this young, to do podcasts and do this stuff. So don't think that it's not going unnoticed because it is. And thank you for letting me help you with this. Shout out to your dad and all the other vendors and so, but yeah, it's been a blessing. So have a great day and I'll see you on X.